Good afternoon, everyone. My name my name is Ella. I'm the consul in charge of the cultural diplomacy portfolio of the consulate. So welcome to the Philippine Consulate here in Chicago. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to braving downtown Chicago traffic to join us today. This afternoon's event is the second of the series of book reading and signing events that we are arranging to celebrate and support Filipino voices in literature. Suggest. For us here at the consulate, we deem it important that we are able to highlight, uplift, and celebrate our local talent and their achievements. I would also like to note that this event is in line with the consulate's cultural and gender development objectives. So to formally start our event, I'd like to call on our Consul General to welcome you all. Consul General,
A few from you.
More comfortable, I'm telling you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Well, thank you for coming over. I thought my voice carries. Well, anyway, thank you for coming over. As you saw entering, we have an impressive spread for all of you. So it's going to be worth your while. It is going to be more worth your while when you hear from Ms. Lacson. As Consul Ella said, this is our attempt to women, to manifest women supporting women. And it's no mean feat to have a Filipino break the mainstream literary scene here in the U.S. And her audience, as shown by the gathering here, people who came in good numbers, it doesn't only attract, her work doesn't only attract Filipinos, but also those who stay here. People of various ethnicities, people of various backgrounds. So, without any further ado, yes. I'm here actually just to introduce the next speaker. Miss Mary Joy Duran-Mortel. She's our cultural diplomacy officer.
Hello, good afternoon. This afternoon, we are privileged to be joined by Chicago-based writer Zee Lacson. We're glad you're here with us. She has had practice in many professions as an engineer, an educator, a photographer, an artist, and now a storyteller. The Wool Gathering trilogy, Reverie, Revenant, and Reveille, is that correct? Reveille, is her first completed story. Reverie was published in 2020, where she was selected as the 2021 Illinois Author Project finalist. The Revenant, its sequel, was released the following year. The trilogy was completed last year with the final book, Reveille. Take note, the trilogy is in the Amazon bestseller list. Twice Removed, her most recent novel, which we will have a glimpse of later, was published during this year's Philippine Independence Day. While her latest book is about manananggals, if you're familiar with our folklore character monster, she's never been a big believer of monsters hiding in the dark. But she does eat a lot of garlic and will sleep with a little light on, just to make sure in case her imagined characters comes to life. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I present to you the zesty and zingy Zee Lacson. You're right.
Thank you for coming. I was told to do a little reading, and typically I would start this at the beginning of the book to give you all an introduction, but for this occasion, there's something in the middle of the book I wanted to read instead. Jay, as you know from the blurb, is the protagonist in the series. He's American born and does not speak Filipino. Lola, or grandmother, only speaks Filipino, and his mom tends to translate. In this scene, Jay is prepping a picnic for a date with Maya when his mom and Lola step in to help him. I think this scene is a good example of strong family bond that Jay, because of his youth and maybe his stubbornness, doesn't yet realize is one of the things that exemplify Filipino culture. So, Pinoy picnic. Ano to? What's this? Mom asks me on Tuesday morning. I'm in the kitchen, standing in front of a bunch of different things all spread out on the counter. I'm trying to figure out what to make, I admit. Para saan? What for? Lola walks into the kitchen carrying an old red and white thermos bottle and hands it to me. She informs Mom that I'm putting together baon, food to bring with me. Bakit? Why? Saan ka pupunta? Where are you going? I see Lola bump Mom with her hip. There's a roguish expression on her face I don't see often. Lola tells her I'm meeting a friend, and they share a look I don't understand. It feels like they're silently making fun of me. They giggle like tweens in the mall. I look at them suspiciously, and they both suddenly adopt expressions of innocence. I roll my eyes. Mom asks me what I'm bringing. That's the problem, I groan dramatically. I don't know. Mom and Lola both laugh. I pout and glare at them, which only makes them laugh more. But they both step up to help me, suggesting easy-to-eat foods. Siopaw? Mom offers. Siopaw is a steamed bun with meat filling. We make ours from scratch. Lola usually makes bao ahead of time because the yeast needs time to rise. Mom cooks the filling and lets it cool. Together, we assemble them, wrapping them up ready for the steamer. It's like a savory sandwich ball with better filling and softer bread. We always make more than we can eat in one sitting, and we made a fresh batch just the other day. We freeze the leftovers to be eaten at the future, like today. Lola removes a batch from the freezer and prepares the steamer. Mom retrieves the homemade sauce from the fridge to be distributed in smaller individual containers for the taking. I watch the women in my family move around the kitchen with perfect synchronicity I've never noticed before. Ano pa? What else? Mom asks. But she's not asking me. She's asking Lola. Lola suggests dessert. They discuss more options, striking the ones that won't keep well in the heat, are too difficult to make, or won't taste good under the circumstances. May turon pa ba tayo? Do we still have some turon left? Turon is essentially a deep-fried dessert spring roll. Lola likes to caramelize overripe bananas before rolling them in the same thin pastry-like wrapper used for spring rolls. The whole thing is deep-fried and then drizzled with caramel sauce. It can be sticky and a little messy, but it's one of my favorite things. It's not going to be crispy anymore by the time we eat it, I warn them. Lola dismisses my concern with a wave of her hand. She fires up the burner and puts the large wok on top. She adds oil, and while she's waiting for it to heat up, tells me to wrap the cool turon in paper towel before wrapping it in foil. It's her trick to keep them as crispy as possible. She separates the caramel and instructs me to add the drizzle only when we're ready to eat them. Can we try chocolate syrup instead? I ask. She frowns, looks down at the caramel she's holding, and then at my mom. Traditionally, turon uses caramel, and she doesn't like that I'm changing things. Mom makes a dismissive noise and waves her hands in the air. It's amusing to watch them argue. If Jay wants to use chocolate, let him use chocolate, Mom orders. Bahala siya. Leave him alone. He's the one that has to eat it. She smiles at me and laughs a little. Naalala mo ba? Do you remember the first time Jay ate turon? He wanted sprinkles on it. They both laugh. The conversation shifts to other incidents when I had food for the first time or when I changed it to suit my preferences instead. What about the cheese pandesal incident? Mom reminds the room. Lola makes a loud sound of agreement while I interrupt to defend myself. Hey, that was really good. You liked it, right, Lola? I put her on the spot. Lola laughs and shakes her head as if to deny approval, but agrees with me. I point to her. See? I didn't say it wasn't good. Mom is laughing harder than I've seen her laugh in a while. I'm saying it was expensive. Naku anak, you used all my laklak cheese. Lola howls with laughter. I'm laughing too. You were so mad, I remind her. I was saving that cheese. She puts one hand on her hip and points the tongs she's using to handle the siopaw at me threateningly. You're lucky that pandesal tasted really good. Lola points out that Mom ate most of the pandesal herself, and Mom shakes the tongs at her. Lola isn't easily threatened and just laughs. You've always been that way, Mom says over her shoulder. What way? I'm almost afraid to ask. Straying from the traditional. She responds while picking up the softened bao with just enough pressure to hold it without making indentations. Your Lola and I know what we were taught, but you always change something in the recipe. Lola says something in Filipino and Mom agrees, but I can't understand. I have an impression it was about me, so I ask. Your Lola says you cook exactly like who you are, Mom explains, confirming my suspicions. They share a look of mutual understanding. Lola's smile is so big I can see all her teeth. What does that mean? Exactly like who I am. I brace myself. She inclines her head and looks at me with a contained smile. A product of two worlds. So I'm going to stop there. Okay. And then I don't know if you agree with me, but I think that interaction between the three generations kind of shows you a very Filipino interaction, and especially with the generations here in the United States. I was told to say a few words. I did the math, and as of this year, I have spent half my life in Manila and half my life here in Illinois. I was born and raised smack in the middle of Makati City. I graduated high school from St. Scholastica's College. I received my degree in mechanical engineering from De La Salle University. I grew up with my paternal grandparents, my dad, and my older twin brothers. And just like any loving father, he wanted to provide with us the best advantage that he could. And he figured, you live in the Philippines. You'll know the language. You'll pick it up. It's around you. It should be easy. So instead, he taught us English. It was my first language, and I did pretty well in my English classes. I think I nailed it. But my Filipino ones were a problem. I absolutely sucked in Filipino. Like, I understood it just fine, but I had real difficulty expressing myself in Filipino. And my teachers, they told me that I should actually be, ashamed of not knowing my native language. In high school, I was made fun of, and and ridiculed for being different. I was told I was too westernized. I'm not Filipino enough. So I was an immigrant in my own country, removed, if you will. Ultimately, it made me not develop a real loyalty to the Philippines. If I wasn't enough, maybe I didn't have a place there. I migrated here at the turn of the century, and I didn't look for a Filipino community. And when I found a fellow Filipino in the wild, I didn't feel the same kind of kinship you normally feel when you find a kababayan. And I think that's because deep inside, I still felt a little betrayed and a little isolated. Like, why would I be part of a Filipino community here when I wasn't Filipino enough there? My kids are American-born, right? And their struggles are similar and still different. Like, if they went to the Philippines, locals there would call them amboy, American boys, or coconuts, brown on the outside, white on the inside. They have 100% Filipino blood, but they weren't born there. They don't know the culture. They don't know the language. But here, Americans will look at them and be like, okay, your skin color, your features, you're Filipino. So where do they belong? We're fortunate enough that we have friends that accept us for who we are and don't expect us to be anything else. And the irony of things is that the further I am away from my native country, the more Filipino I am. I mean, I'm the most Filipino that I've ever been in my entire life. And I think that's because here, especially in the Midwest, not many people meet a lot of Filipinos. And I was their first Filipino friend. So I got to be the one to bring them Filipino food. I got to share the stories, the history, the everything. And I got to introduce them to the Philippines. And that's when I realized being Filipino is more than just a language. Everything I've experienced, my family, my extended family, my cousins that aren't really cousins, the funky names, my friends, the places I've been to, the food I grew up with, my beliefs, my traditions, my spirituality, all of that, that makes me Filipino too. And little by little, I started to believe that I am Filipino. I've had my naturalization for over a decade now, so technically I'm not Filipino. I'm Filipino American. And I'm comfortable with that. So this is what I want to say to you all here. All you Filipino Americans, every immigrant kid, every next generation that follows, this is what Twice Removed is all about. Don't worry about the gatekeepers, those self-proclaimed gatekeepers. You are a product of two worlds. You get to define that. You get to define what that means. You get to make the rules. You are Filipino enough. Your duty is to represent that responsibly, with dignity, and with pride. Mabuhay.